my name is Matt. I am the Director of Marketing and Admissions here at New Apprenticeship. I am going to run through a quick presentation. Hopefully I can make it through quickly. That just covers a little bit of the high level around what the apprenticeship is, why we do it, some of the structure behind it, the different aspects of it, kind of what a pathway and timeline looks like, and then open it up to questions. I'm also going to share another resource that we just put together that kind of outlines some of the different programs, occupations that we have, so that you can take a look and compare them against each other. And so as we continue to grow as an organization and offer more of these pathways, we recognize that there's not just one option. There are multiple options that you might be interested in. And so I'm hoping that is really going to prove to be helpful for everyone. We also should, you guys should see as part of the, the options here, the ability to either chat or put questions using a Q&A button. I will do my best to monitor that as I'm moving through. However, if you do have questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A. That would be the preferable place. That way I can kind of keep that up and try to monitor and address them as they come. Again, feel free to ask them at any given point. If I don't get to them in the presentation, I promise after I get through my portion, I will answer any of those questions that I didn't get to and open it up for additional questions. Okay, well, I'm going to get started here. And first off, thank you guys for joining in the middle of the day. I really appreciate it and excited to connect more and hear what kind of questions you have, and hopefully provide some information. So I mentioned, my name is Matt with the New Apprenticeship team here, and I always like to kind of start off by talking about who we are and why we do it. I think that is the most important thing of any of the details that I can provide today. And so really what we are, as the name would suggest, right, we're an apprenticeship program. So what that means, our approach is we partner with employers first. We go to companies that are, we think, really innovative, and they recognize that the system for hiring, especially tech roles, is broken. It needs to be fixed. It places too much emphasis on four-year degrees, on really what are traditional educational pathways, and recognize that talent is everywhere, and it doesn't necessarily come from all from four-year universities. So those are the companies that we partner with to then understand what are the roles that they're looking for, what are the skills that are necessary, absolutely necessary on day one for that employee, that apprentice, to be effective, then reverse engineer that into an accelerated boot camp, so that we can provide opportunities for people who don't have the experience yet, have some education, but maybe not the complete list of what they would be looking for, to really train specifically to that company, to that role, so that you can start day one, be effective, but then continue to grow and learn through the apprenticeship. That's the biggest understanding that we have with our employers, is that instead of finding someone who's got the 3 years of experience, who can do everything that you want right away, let's grow together, that through providing feedback, the apprenticeship providing coaching, mentoring, things that I'll get to in a minute. But that's kind of why we exist, to really address that problem, to kind of be the bridge to tech employment. So this is, I mentioned a bridge, a pathway. This is kind of what we do. So I see a question that I'm going to get to in a minute here, probably at the end of, when we get to a little bit farther down, I'll address that question. But this is kind of what it looks like. So, those that are interested in a tech career can join the apprenticeship, can learn some of these skills, can benefit from the coaching, the mentoring, the instruction, and at no cost. There's no cost to our apprentices to participate as they go through that boot camp period. Then at the end of that, we coordinate interviews with our partner employers. So they're the ones who are hiring. They're the ones who are going to be signing your paycheck. So we kind of coordinate that interviews, knowing that everyone who made it to that point had already worked towards a sort of curriculum or learnings that they had requested, then starting the full-time job. So while doing that, there's the apprenticeship tuition, again, is all paid as a job benefit. So there's no cost. And there's additional, the benefit to the employers, of course, is that our apprentices continue to develop, earn certifications, and really grow their understanding and performance throughout the 12 months. So the qualifications, they vary a little bit by our occupation, and that's because our employers vary. We do have one of the big pieces here that I want to call out is that one of our largest employers does not enable those who have already completed their bachelor's degree to participate. And that's not all of them, but that is quite a few of the roles that are available. And unfortunately, even if it was a bachelor's degree 15 years ago for philosophy, they still kind of view that as a disqualifier for that program, or at least for that role. So when you go through the application process, or when you look at any of the individual landing pages for the role or for the occupation, it should say some information there as to whether or not we have available roles for those that have already had their bachelor's degree. However, if you haven't received it, but you've already received your high school diploma or an equivalent, and you have the ability to work in the U.S. Without sponsorship, then you meet the general qualifications. So this is a typical timeline of what the apprenticeship looks like. So it starts off with an 8 to 9 week boot camp. I mentioned a little bit about what that is, and varies by occupation, but it's really that baseline technical skills development that is over the course of 2 or 3 sessions in the evenings, typically, plus some additional work that all of our apprentices, or we call them learners, who are going through the boot camp program, all of our learners will give per week. And that would then lead to the interview, as mentioned, which would then lead to the apprenticeship. The apprenticeship itself is 12 months. And as you can see here, it starts at the same time of full-time employment. However, the apprenticeship will end after 12 months. And the hope is that the full-time employment does not. It continues on through for many years, we hope, as each of our apprentices advance throughout the organization. I also want to call out this continuing education piece. It is something that we've tried to build in through some of the partners, through organizations that we partner with. Southern New Hampshire University is a big partner in which we've identified ways for those that have completed some of our apprenticeships to actually get up to 27 credits towards their bachelor's degree, completion of their bachelor's degree at the end of that 12 months. It doesn't have to be that, but we want to try to develop ways that everyone can continue their education, whether it's formally or through additional certifications, things that are going to increase your earnings potential throughout your career. So the expectations on this, it's pretty intense learning. Some people, you may have done boot camps in the past, or have been in classes or things where it has been fast paced, high expectations. That I think that is the best thing to come into with, is that expectation that this is going to be, while kind of a part-time in the number of hours, it's a pretty big mental commitment. So I always like to get that out at the front to let people know. This is kind of what a larger, more detailed journey map could look like. So I mentioned the boot camp, interview, start the apprenticeship program. Over the course of that 12 months, we're going to have meetings. We facilitate meetings with our coaches and our apprentices and managers to really understand what those expectations are, what the goals are, get them in paper, have a point of mutual agreement that they're going to be working towards that. Then just to really make sure we are all aligned at the beginning to understand what's expected and ideally meet and or exceed that. So when we meet again the next quarter, it's going to be very clear that our apprentices did really well. They met the goals that were outlined for them, reduces ambiguity, a lot of great things. The technical skill development, of course, through the curriculum, through the certifications, but also coaching. I'll talk a little bit more about that quickly in a couple minutes, but it's a big part of what we incorporate into our program that we think is really important. And also a Department of Labor certificate at the end. We are a U.S. Department of Labor certified or registered apprenticeship program, and then continued employment and continuing education. So boot camp can vary a little bit by the occupation, but typically is between this 8 to 9 weeks. The standard 15 to 20 hours that is unpaid. However, as mentioned, there's no cost, and the majority either have certifications that are directly incorporated into the boot camp or that are prepared for in the boot camp, and test costs can be paid for as well for those that complete the program. So that's kind of one of the primary benefits, in addition to, of course, the guaranteed interview at the end of it for a full-time role. The apprenticeship functions similarly, except for it is a little bit less time intensive. You're meeting twice a week in the evenings. The number of hours required are a little bit less, and you're already employed. You're getting a full-time salary, you're getting that paycheck and benefits. So it tends to be, I think the experience, while still really challenging and rewarding, is not quite as you would see in the boot camp. And then the performance coaching. I mentioned it's a big, what we feel is a differentiator. We incorporate coaching through we call job readiness coaches at the beginning. Then we have performance coaches throughout that you'd be meeting with weekly. We have leadership coaching that happens at talks on topics like strategic relationships or managing up, time management, things like that throughout the 12 months. Mentor roundtables, bringing some really awesome people to chat around, just what they're seeing in the industry. And then the quarterly performance reviews that I mentioned earlier, around just to really set and align expectations and what each of our apprentices is expected to deliver. So next steps, we have an application or various applications depending on what program. Some will have projects that you need to complete, either whether a certification or something to demonstrate that you meet kind of the minimal criteria for that interview, and then an admissions decision. I do want to share one more resource quickly that I mentioned, and I will send this link as well for our apprenticeship page. And this it highlights it looks like all of our the 4 occupations, 4 programs that we have right now. It kind of looks at all of them in a side-by-side comparison. So looking at what are the certifications, topics, syllabus, criteria, where are the roles located, upcoming start dates, things like that. I think it will be a very helpful tool that I will drop in the chat right now. All right. Well, thank you guys for bearing with me to get through that presentation. I hope it was helpful in understanding kind of what a little bit more about us and why we're here, a structure of the apprenticeship in general. but excited to be able to answer any specific questions about any of the occupations that you might be interested in. One of those questions was about the data analyst program, if that can be done, remotely. And so all of our apprenticeship learning, all the boot camp and the learning, that is all done remotely. So we used Zoom, and we have our instructors. We use a learning and LMS called Canvas that you guys might be familiar with to deliver all of that. And so that is done remotely. The jobs themselves, that can depend, and it depends on the employer, what the employer is looking for. Some will have remote opportunities available. Others will say, well, you need to be on the job or in office. Some will have hybrid. So it varies a little bit. What we're seeing right now is the majority remote. But as COVID the situation further develops, we may see more coming back into the office. The way that we handle it really is within our application process, we ask that we try to err on the side of caution, knowing that post-COVID, some of these roles could, unless they're specifically called out as remote, some of these roles could be called back into an office. And so the majority that you're going to see on there are erring on that side of caution, so that we ask that you to apply to one of the locations that we're hiring in, and then if needed to be able to head into that office, whether that's relocation upon that time, or ideally if you live in the area, it's much easier to get into that. I had a question about in the chat, the pasting the link. If you could elaborate on which link, I can be sure to paste that here. Really great question, though. What other part of the other Q&A? The question was answered was the education and age restrictions. I think I covered on education already. We do have, as far as age, you need to be 18 or older. That is our kind of minimum. There's not a maximum age restriction. Great. I can see some clarification. Let me know if this is, it should be the newapprenticeship.com /apprenticeships. Let me know if that's getting to everyone in the chat. Okay. Any other questions? Another option. Yes, thank you. Let me try this one. I believe I was just sending it to a partial part of the group. Did that come through in chat? Perfect. Thank you guys for your patience there. What other questions can I answer? In the meantime, as I'm waiting for it, I will spend a minute to talk about one of our primary employers, primary employer partners, and that's an organization called Infosys. If you have heard of them, they are massive. I think a $14 billion revenue a year organization, I think 270,000 employees worldwide. They are headquartered in the US. The US headquarters, at least, is out of Dallas, but they have offices in a lot of locations. They've been hiring out of their innovation hubs primarily, in addition to other locations. But if you've applied or you've looked at some of the locations, the Indianapolis, Raleigh, Hartford, Dallas, Phoenix, or the Tempe, the Phoenix sort of Tempe metro are some of the key locations, and then others as well. But an amazing organization, and really invested in employees. We just graduated our first apprenticeship, 12-month apprenticeship with Infosys a week ago last Saturday, for our group who's completed an IT ServiceNow developer roles. And that is getting into a little bit of a question that was just asked around software engineering training. So the closest occupation, or the closest apprenticeship that we have towards the really software side, is our IT program, our IT ServiceNow. So we are training our apprentices to start as ServiceNow developers. So utilizing part of the initial learning is utilizing the ServiceNow platform, kind of understanding how it works, but then the role and where we will look to develop even some skills within the boot camp, but then more so during the apprenticeship itself, is to be able to create custom apps, to be able to create and modify things within the ServiceNow program itself. So I'm not a developer, but my understanding is really the JavaScript is one of the core scripting languages necessary to make some modifications. And then for some of the app building itself, it is, I believe they called portals in ServiceNow that utilize HTML and CSS, as well as AngularJS, I believe. So yeah, but if you have additional questions on that and some of the specifics, let me know. You can shoot me an email. I can connect you with more of our faculty, of our instructors, and they can get deeper into that if you're interested. Another part of that question is the apprenticeship guaranteed? And so the apprenticeship, if we call the apprenticeship the full-time employment, the 12 months after the boot camp, then that is not guaranteed. Essentially, what we're going to guarantee is at those that complete the boot camp period, that you have an interview with that employer. Most of the time, it is a single final interview, because what we do, in addition to sending over your resume and maybe a cover letter like you would normally, we include different portfolios, different certifications that you've earned, any of the modules that you've completed. Send those over, because remember, this is a sort of co-designed training program. So we send over all your performance leading up to that, so they have a better sense of kind of your background and performance to date, so that the hiring decision can be made more quickly. Yes, I had another question around sharing my email. So I'm just sent that in chat as well. Great. I see we are coming up here close to our time, less than 5 minutes left, and want to make sure that I can answer any other questions, or if you have questions that you don't get to ask, or you think about later, you have my email address, so you can definitely send me an email separately, and we can get back to you. Any last questions here to address? Doesn't look like we have anything coming in. Um, yeah, I just want to thank you guys again for joining. We are really just excited that myself and everyone who works at the team, we have been so excited and really just thankful to be able to work in this position and to work with our apprentices. And we've seen some really amazing stories, especially just reflecting back at that graduation, our first IT cohort graduation about a week ago, just being able to hear some of the stories. And our apprentices were working at, as an Amazon delivery driver, or working at Target, working in the restaurant industry. We don't have people who, we do, but we're not exclusively people who have been working in tech already. It's designed for people who haven't been able to break into tech. And so hear those stories has been really inspirational for us on the team. And I appreciate you all coming here and learning a bit more about the program, and hope that we can play a similar role in, potentially in your career journeys, as be able to get into tech, and then see all the great benefits of what that can provide for for our apprentices individually and for their families, for their loved ones. So anyway, thank you guys again for listening to me here. I hope it was informative, and as mentioned, any other questions, please send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks, everyone.